Welcome to Student Connections, where students connect with their community.
Hello and welcome to Student Connections. I'm Zane King, and joining me today is Mrs. Susan Bennett from the Port Huron Museum. Hi, Mrs. Bennett.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me, Zane.
No
I'm
problem.
delighted to be here to talk to you.
So, can you tell us, what you do, at the museum? What's your position?
I'm the executive director of the Port Huron Museum, so that really means that I kind of coordinate everyone else and keep it going. We have some wonderful people who have great museum history, and my history, incidentally, is in business. So above all else, while we want to serve our community, it is a business. So I'm charged with keeping that rolling.
It's very interesting. So, we know that the museum has grown over the past, few years and all. What are some of the locations that the Port Huron Museum owns?
Well, we've got the Carnegie Center, which is our headquarters, if you will, and that's where we do traveling exhibits. And that's a 1904 Carnegie Library right in the middle of downtown Port Huron, grand old building. And our second site was the Huron Lightship, which is located in Pine Grove Park. And even though it's on the waterway, it's actually in sand. The third was the Thomas Edison Depot, which is actually the depot where Thomas Edison worked when he lived in Port Huron and published his own paper on the train. And that was refurbished in 2003, and it's really quite a place right under the Blue Water Bridge. And finally, in 2012, we added the Fort Gratiot Light Station, which is actually the lighthouse is on a 5-acre property owned by St. Clair County Parks. So we have a contract with County Parks to operate the exhibits and the tours and the gift shop and special events that happen on the site. So those are the 4 that keep us busy.
So you probably definitely get a lot of people in most of those.
A lot of people. The lighthouse last year had about 28,000 visitors. The Carnegie Center had about 30. And the other 2 were in between, but you've got to kind of balance that because some of them are open only seasonally.
So some of the past exhibits have been very interesting, like the Storm of 1913.
That was a wonderful exhibit.
And the mob exhibit.
And the mob, well, actually it was Behind the Barrel was the name, and it was about Prohibition. And those years in the 20s and 30s when Prohibition was in effect, our proximity to Canada really made this a headquarters for the nation of importing moonshine and booze of all sorts.
So do you have a favorite?
1913 was my favorite. It took about 1.5 years to put together, and it saw about 14,000 visitors, which for our little town of Port Huron and Marysville, that meant that 1 out of every 3 people came to see it. And the Storm of 1913, for those who don't know, it was the centennial, and that was the worst maritime disaster ever on the Great Lakes, and over 200 people died in a period of 18 hours. And to give you an idea of how bad it was, there were 40-foot waves that hit our lighthouse. And there's changes that were actually done to the lighthouse after that storm, which are still in effect today to protect it. But that was a once-in-a-millennium storm. And we had some wonderful partners, and it was a really great exhibit.
Those type of waves seem like unreal, especially for this type
They
of area.
are unreal. If you stand and look 40 feet up, in fact, we made 40-foot banners that said, "Imagine a 40-foot wave," and you would be surprised how few places we could display them because not many buildings are 40 feet tall. So if you think of that from the perspective of being in the water and looking up and seeing that coming at you, no, I'll be a landlubber, I think.
That would scare anyone.
It would.
So are there any new exhibits coming into town?
We haven't finalized our plans for fall of 2016 because right now at the Carnegie, we're very busy working on some restoration to the main floor. And this is in conjunction with the city of Port Huron, and it is in terrible need of some updates. So we're working on that for the next few months. And one of the things we're working on here in the winter when it's more quiet than when we're open for visitors. At the lighthouse, we are taking the 1874 duplex, and we're turning it into a lighthouse keeper's home from the 1930s. So that'll be probably a couple-year project, but we've already uncovered walls and floors and found a fireplace and did all those cool kind of things from that building that was built in 1974.
Seems like you guys are always doing something for the community too.
We are never not busy. We've always got stuff to look forward to, and that's part of our mission. Honoring what went before and making plans for the future. So.
Oh, I imagine you get pretty crazy. So, how do you research and your plan for new exhibits when you are
Well, there's
planning
a
on
couple
putting them
different things. We've been very fortunate in the last couple of years to have staff on hand that we could build our own, like we did for 1913 or Behind the Barrel. Occasionally, we'll rent one from a national agency. We're looking at one right now about fossils that was put together with the Museum of Natural History. And that's a rental kind of thing, and it's a lot of money to rent. It's about $25,000 for 12 weeks. So we've got to make sure that all those pieces are in place so that we'll be able to not only afford it, but to have it be a money maker for those times when we don't have stuff going on. We get ideas from some of our members. We get ideas from other museums. It can be almost anything. And we're pretty fortunate still to have people that are creative and can go and say, we need to build a still. And then we go find the parts and we build it.
So everyone throws out ideas.
Everybody throws it in. We're a very small staff compared to all that we do. There's only 5 full-time people operating those 4 sites. So we're all doing all kinds of different things and overlap, but you will never hear someone say it's not my job.
That's very interesting. Well, be sure to join us after these messages to learn more about our museum has to offer.
114th Infantry Company, Iraq.
The memories are all blurred.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
The words, they're hard to find.
I came back a different person.
I wonder if she's better off without me.
You just feel alone.
You gave all to the cause of freedom. Now it's our turn to give our all to you. It's free and totally confidential. Reach us at operationnotforgotten.com. We are here.
Welcome back to Student Connections. We've been talking about the Port Huron Museum with Director Mrs. Susan Bennett. So, Mrs. Bennett, how many employees work at the museum and how many volunteers do you think you get?
Well, we've got about 5 full-time employees that are there all year, and then when we add our full-time seasonal people, when everything is up and running in the summer, it's about 22. And volunteers, wow, that's a hard one to answer. We've got so many dedicated ones, and we usually do a training class in the spring to bring everybody up to date of what may have happened over the winter, and we train anywhere from 40 to 60 people that work a couple hours a day, once every other week, and they're very valuable to our business. And they also become cheerleaders for our business, where they can talk knowledgeably about what they do, and that encourages other people to come.
It's great to see that you have a lot of volunteers in the area.
And they're so dedicated. We couldn't do it without them.
So, do you coming back to the how much does it cost to go? Do you have any memberships? And
We
how much
do have
would it
museum
cost?
memberships, and museum memberships, depending on how many people and how old you are anywhere from $30 to $75 for a family of 6, and that includes unlimited visits to any of the sites. So that's a pretty good deal. We also have what we call passports, and passports allow one person, one visit to each site, and they're anywhere from $15 to $25. So it's a very reasonable way to go.
That really is a really good, reasonable price. So, like many organizations, budget crunches are hitting hard. How has the museum budget changed?
It is probably about half of what it was 10 years ago. And a lot of that has just come about because of challenges that we've made to the way we do business. We couldn't do it the way we used to because public grants and those kind of things, which traditionally fueled museums, don't occur anymore. So we've had to do all kinds of efficiencies, make all kinds of cuts, but while at the same time not affecting the service that we're offering. So again, money-wise, it's about half of what it used to be. Things that went by the wayside are big, long trips to European countries and those kind of things, and changing our focus from trying to be everything to everyone to really, concentrating on our local history. There's other museums and other places you can go to learn about fine art. The DIA, one of the finest in the world, is 45 minutes down the road, and let them do the art piece, if you will. So we'll take things like the Great Lakes and freighters and geology and all of those things, because when our visitors from out of state come, they don't want to see art. They're coming to find out what made the whole Blue Water area what it is. And that's our job to tell, is that story. And by narrowing the focus, we've been able to handle the budget a lot better.
That's very interesting. So we hear that you do some school activities. Can you describe some of those?
We do a lot of school activities. We have almost 900 kids a year that come to our little 1870s cabin, which is right behind the museum, and they do a Pioneer Day, and they live like people did in the 1850s. And they make soup over the fire and write with a quill pen, and some even come in that period dress, and they play games on walk sticks and things from the middle 1800s. And that's a very popular program, always booked through schools. We do scout programs for both Boy and Girl Scouts where you can earn a merit badge. We have an overnight at the light program where groups of 20 or more can stay overnight at the lighthouse, and they get an instructional program in the evening when they arrive, and they get another one in the morning before they leave. And that's basically Great Lakes based. So there's all kinds of, we have hundreds of programs. So anyone that wants to do anything from a school trip to a child's birthday party will be able to accommodate it.
Can't believe those many kids can go and still fit in that small area. It's just really nice to hear.
Well, they have a good time, and we do 30, 40 days a year, and it's rain or shine.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
We pray for the shine.
So why do you guys believe it's important for our community to invest their time into the history and culture?
Well, I think history and culture is life enhancing. You know, we all work very hard. We all live by our calendars and all of our technology. But to step back and look and touch and feel something that perhaps we have a chair that Abraham Lincoln sat in his office in Springfield. Long story how we got a hold of it, but to actually look at that and say, Abraham Lincoln worked in this chair, it's very, it's exciting. It's imagine this. It makes you reflect on the past, and gosh knows the past is what brought us to now.
There is really a lot of history in the Port Huron Museum in the area, and
There's
I'm really
a lot.
glad that you guys bring it out to the community. So, and our last question, anything else you would like to share with our viewers today about the Port Huron Museum?
Well, I think that some people don't know that we handle all 4 of those locations, the Lightship, the Depot, the Carnegie, and then a partnership with the Lighthouse. Every day I talk to people who grew up here and didn't know there was a lighthouse, and here it is, Michigan's oldest, built in 1829, and only the second one built on all of the Great Lakes. So that's really saying something, you know, and how that ties into our local history. There was Fort Gratiot. There was, you know, this river is a major thoroughfare today for commercial shipping. So all of that put together, we live in a pretty remarkable place. We've got all the Native American history. We've got industrial history like you can't believe. Port Huron was one of the first places to have electric lights. And all of those little things, and they built us up to what we are today.
I'm glad to hear that we live in such a rich community full of history.
We absolutely do, with culture and heritage, and you know the immigrants from Germany and the immigrants from Ireland that all settled in St. Clair County. You know, the lumber industry, which a lot of people don't realize when you drive down 69 and you think, why aren't there any trees? Well, because the lumber industry took those out, and this was a major industry for the world. You know, our logs were shipped everywhere. So, and that was just through Little Black River and down this river and out the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's an amazing story, and we have to honor what our past is.
We do love what you guys do for the Port
Thanks.
Huron area and the museum.
The whole area, Marysville too. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today on Student Connections. Be sure to join us again next time on M6, your hometown station.